Well, our top story tonight, in a move aimed at wooing foreign investors, the government today doubled the limit for prior approval of FDI by the CCEA to 1,200 crore rupees, Harsha.
Well, sorry, Shireen. In addition, the government also cleared a set of relaxations for FDI, which is aimed at breaking policy bottlenecks. This includes trimming the role of the FIPB, or the Foreign Investment Promotion Board, so that foreign investments are not stuck because of archaic regulatory requirements.
At present, recommendations of the FIPB, where the total investment is 600 crore and above, is placed before the CCEA. This limit was last fixed in July 1996. Keeping in view the time elapsed and other economic factors like inflation, flow of investment, etc., it is now being decided that only proposals involving a foreign equity of rupees 1,200 crore or more would be placed for consideration of the CCEA. All of the proposals will be decided at the level of the FIPB and submitted to the minister in charge of the FIPB, which is the finance minister.
Well, that was the announcement there early today. It will be interesting to see how foreign investors perceive these changes made by India amid signs of global recovery when countries will compete for foreign investment. For more on this, we're joined by RP Singh, the Secretary of the DIPP, also with us, former Secretary of the DIPP, Ajay Dua, and joining us is Mohit Saraf, Senior Partner at Luthra And Luthra. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us. Mr. Singh, let me start by asking you, sir, this is a very, very welcome change, but a change that's taken almost 15 years to actually come through. Sir, why this significant delay, and also what is the rationale behind hiking that cap from 600 crores to 1,200 crores, sir?
I think I should say better late than never. And as you have been seeing, we have been liberalizing the FDI regime in a calibrated manner. This, of course, is a step which has got, which is certainly going to have large implications. It's not only the threshold limit which has been changed for referring the cases to the CCEA. We have also defined very clearly, rather made it clear, that this limit will operate only for the purpose of equity, foreign equity. Earlier, the 600 crore threshold used to operate for the whole project cost. So the project cost used to be reckoned for the purpose of this threshold limit. Now it will be the equity component alone. So the actual impact will be much more, in my view. We have also tried to clarify a few things more. In the earlier, once an FIPB case was always an FIPB case. Once a case was sent to FIPB to begin with, even for additional investment, it used to go to FIPB. Now, if the sector has come under automatic route, we need not go to the FIPB or to CCEA. We have also try to clarify that once we have taken a permission, or given a permission, in cases where the investor had an earlier agreement, technological transfer agreement with some other company, and we have dealt with that issue once at FIPB or CCEA level, then for additional investment it will not go again to FIPB or CCEA. So this is also going to remove a bottleneck which was there.
All right, so as you've pointed out, several changes and critical changes have been announced today. But Mohit Saraf, let me bring you in before I bring Ajay Dua in. These are welcome changes. These have been changes that have been sought for a very, very long time. How much is this actually going to ease the procedure? How much is this actually going to ease the inflow of foreign direct investment into the country?
I think it will have a significant impact. Every time a foreign investor considered increasing the stake or increasing the percentage or increasing the investment amount, and once he realized that it has to go through FIPB, and then if it has to go to the cabinet committee, there was always a nervousness, particularly because of the delay factor. And because of this clarification, particularly the three clarifications which Mr. Singh mentioned, that should simplify the process, should facilitate investment. But Mr. Singh, I would like to ask you one thing which I was not so sure when I read the last part of the notification, which says that in case of a press note 1 of 2005, and if once a proposal has been approved, you said that any further investment would not require an FIPB approval. What I wanted to ask you was that let's assume the earlier approval was to get into investment and buy up to 45% or 49% in a company, and once that has been approved, and after that it is an automatic route. Are you saying that we can actually go up to 100% without any further approval?
If it is automatic route, certainly those sectors, conditions which are applicable to those sectors will only apply. So this particular requirement that for additional investment, you have to again take into consideration the interest of the earlier company which has got a tie-up. That condition will disappear.
So
okay, Mohit Saraf, does that answer?
In the earlier, it actually doesn't
answer what you were looking for?
No, what I was looking for is that if in the earlier approval, if you had given a minority stake to a foreign investor because he has an existing stake, and subsequently he wants to increase and become a controlling stake in that new joint venture, and it is under automatic route, and even if it's like over 1,200 crore, it will not require an approval. That's what you said, right?
The impression which I get from this clarification is that in case we have taken into consideration the interest of the earlier joint venture holder in India, then we need not again look into his objection now at this stage, because we would have already taken a note of that aspect. Now, if there are other conditions which have been put which require him to go to FIPB, that certainly will have to be taken into account.
Mr. Singh, just a question on the overall approach with which you're trying to attract foreign direct investment in this country. You've often said that you are reviewing sectoral caps in a calibrated manner. Will you also be looking at sectors that have conventionally been closed, that have industry that has been clamoring for caps to be opened up? Will there be periodical review? Will you be taking that on a case-to-case basis to figure out if these caps need to be in place at all?
See, this is an evolving policy, and we have to take into consideration the interest of various stakeholders. As on today, I will say on this particular issue, I will not like to comment. But there is always an ongoing discussion going on at different levels, and we are always open to discussion on this aspect. And we invite different fora to come and interact with us, and we try to involve all stakeholders. And this is an ongoing process, and you will see further clarifications coming and further liberalization coming over a period of time, depending upon the requirements of the country.
Ajay Dua, can I bring you here? What is the reservation about these sectoral caps that the government has? While there are industries, for example, the aviation sector, that has been clamoring for it, what's the reservation in the government circle to sort of not open it up? We're still having a policy that talks about opening things up, bringing in a draft guideline to bring things up. Even then, there seems to be some reservation. What are the apprehensions in the minds of the government?
I wouldn't like to hazard a guess on behalf of my successor, Mr. R.P. Singh, who's in a better position to talk about what the contemporary reservations are. But I would say that the critical sectors of the economy, which includes things like airports, telecom, and other infrastructure sectors, in several countries of the world, there are restrictions. We have progressed considerably with respect to infrastructure. There is no limit whatsoever, sectoral cap, in the case of highways. There's none in the case of electricity. All the three aspects of electricity: transmission, generation, distribution. We do have some restrictions in the case of airlines, airports, which are there elsewhere in the world as well. Some of these stem from security considerations, some from economic stability criteria point of view. I think we are, in all these respects, yeah. Please go ahead, Shireen.
Mr. Dua, I just wanted to interrupt you because, you said you wouldn't like to hazard a guess on behalf of Mr. R.P. Singh, but certainly you can be a lot more candid now, sir. In your experience now, after having worked with the government and now viewing what really is going on as far as the private sector is concerned, is this enough, sir? Is this enough to draw in the big dollars that we actually want coming in?
Shirin, I don't think so. All that's happened today is we have simplified our procedure to some extent. We have not made any substantive change in our FDI regime, which continues to have the same set of restrictions or be at the same level of liberalization as it was till yesterday. Today's changes are merely about who is to accord the approval. Earlier, the FIPB, minister in charge of FIPB had jurisdiction to clear projects up to 600 crore rupees. Now, instead of 600 rupees, that limit has been doubled to 1200 crore rupees, and it was called for. After all, the last revision to 600 crores from 300 crores was made in 1996. Inflation has gone far beyond doubling up during this 15 years span. Also, but the
so you're not expecting a dollar deluge. So you're not expecting a dollar deluge on account of these changes that have been announced?
Not at all. Not at all, Shireen. I don't think that procedural changes are going to make a terrible difference in terms of inflow of dollars or foreign currency into India.
Okay, Mohit Saraf, would you echo that procedural changes are not really going to bring in the kind of money that the government is hoping to do so?
The procedural changes...
Absolutely, I agree with that. Only the process has been liberalized, and it is not that sectoral caps have been increased. That is where you get extra dollars. Here, the timing of the dollar, the hassles, the delay, that has been taken care of.
In fact,
Mr. R.P. Singh, you've heard
when it was set up... Yeah.
Go on, Mr. R.P. Singh, you've heard what both Mohit Saraf and Mr. Dua have had to say, sir. You have said that the government will try and bring about more substantive changes. But at this point in time, sir, what more can we really expect, and how soon, more importantly, can we expect more substantive change?
I think while there is a demand for substantive changes from some quarters, there is also a need to clarify procedures. This is what we have done today. And we are alive to the demands of various sectors. And as Mr. Dua himself said, we have to take into account the security considerations, economic stability considerations, and things like that. And I think we are alive to those problems, and you will see that we will do our groundwork very carefully. And whatever industry expects from us, we'll certainly try to deliver on those areas.
All right, gentlemen, I'm afraid we've completely run out of time. Harsha, do you have a final question?
Well, I was just going to ask you Mr. Singh, just one question on the new guidelines that created a bit of confusion on the calculation of the FDI, particularly on ownership in the banking space. Are we expecting some more clarity? Do we expect some clarifications to come on that account that can bring in more transparency and sort of reduce the complexity in interpretation?
See, as far as insurance companies are concerned, they have been kept out of the purview of those guidelines, if you have really gone through them.
Right.
As far as the banking sector is concerned, there are only 2 or 3 banks which are affected by that. And that is also, right now, I don't think there's a pressure on them to go in for downstream companies which are fully owned by them. So right now, I think it's a theoretical question. But the various advantages which have flowed out of that press note, kindly take note of those also. And I don't think we should meddle with that policy which has been already announced.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. Ajay Dua, R.P. Singh, Mohit Saraf, many thanks for joining us this evening with your perspective. Well, that's the view coming in from the government, really, on the changes made to those FDI norms. Coming up next.